It's an era of change, of ideals and cultures constantly colliding. We need brave people who will find the way of hope in the chaos, who will elevate truth in their speech and activate reform in their lives. Leigh Sloan welcomes you to this Brave Nation.
Hi, friend. Today, for this Christmas edition of Brave Nation, I'm going to share with you a little inspiration I had probably over 15 years ago now. I was reading my kids' beautiful book of fables, and I came across the story of the Little Red Hen. Now, if you haven't read it or heard it in school, it's about an industrious little hen who finds a grain of wheat. She decides to plant the grain of wheat, harvest it, grind it into flour, and then bake it into bread. Well, the whole process, as you can imagine, takes quite a bit of work and quite a bit of time, and all along the way, she keeps asking for help from the other barn animals. But each animal was really lazy and responded with, "Not I. I'm too busy lounging about." Well, naturally, when the bread came out of the oven, she says, "Who will help me eat the bread?" To which they all respond, "Oh, I'll do that. I'll volunteer for that." As would be consistent with the response from any selfish individual, to which she responds, "Nope, I'll handle that myself." And she doesn't let anyone else eat any of the bread. Now, this story is centuries old, and it teaches kids that they can't expect to get something for nothing while they're lazy and selfish. It's a pretty good principle. But I felt like something sadly was missing. So I kept the same storybook tone and I changed it to a new version that I think suits both young and old. So I'm going to read it to you today. Now, this is the only audible version of the story that you can get. So consider this my Christmas gift to you. And if you want to say thank you for this Christmas gift, go and click on Amazon, search for my book, The Little Brown Hen, and write it a review. I would love to have a review from you. Right now, I believe you can download it for only $2. When you hear this, it might even be free. So go ahead and check that out. So this is The Little Brown Hen. This is my author copy, my first ever copy. The Little Red Hen Meets Her Match is the subtitle. And I wrote this for my niece, Athena Valor, and to every big idea person with the courage to find treasure in others. Now, it does have the story of the Little Red Hen here. I'm not going to read that to you, but just in case you didn't know the story of the Little Red Hen. My friend Maggie Joy did the illustrations, and they're awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and show this to you while I read. The Little Red Hen, as you might know from the famous story, The Little Red Hen, was a very hardworking little hen. She was very capable of sowing her own seed, growing her own wheat, harvesting her own stalks, grinding her own flour, and baking her own bread. However, she had become irritated with all the other animals on the farm who lazed about, never seeming to do anything productive with their miserable lives. Consequently, the Little Red Hen found herself doing everything on the farm that needed to be done. She was quite miserable. And although she had everything she might need, she lacked the gift of friendship, of camaraderie, and of love. Then along came the Little Brown Hen. She was not as experienced as the Little Red Hen, but she had big ideas and she loved her fellow animals. She loved to think of new solutions to big problems. Now, the Little Red Hen had grown so bitter toward animal kind that she was also not fond of the Little Brown Hen. No matter what the Little Brown Hen said to try to convince her that there was a better way to do things around the farm, the Little Red Hen would not listen. After hearing the unusual mutterings and complaints of the Little Red Hen, the Little Brown Hen challenged her to a contest. The Little Red Hen, being a productive and competitive sort, heartily accepted the challenge. The challenge was for each of the hens to plant, grow, harvest, and mill enough wheat to have flour for the entire winter season. The Little Red Hen would do it her way, and the Little Brown Hen would do it hers. This would prove whose way was best once and for all. The Little Red Hen got started right away. She knew just what to do. She had done this maybe 100 times before. She chuckled to herself when she considered the lack of experience that the Little Brown Hen had with such things. And when she observed the Little Brown Hen's behavior, she was all the more encouraged. For the Little Brown Hen was just standing there, with a stick in her hand, drawing pictures in the dirt. Little Red Hen thought to herself, This hen has no idea how to work hard, and she's not nearly as skilled as I am. Let her dream her little dreams and draw her little pictures. I will surely put her in her place." The little red hen was very pleased with herself as she hustled and bustled along her merry way. The little brown hen spent the entire first day thinking and drawing on the ground with her stick, drawing and thinking, thinking and drawing. The next day, the little brown hen spent the entire day talking. She talked with the dog, she talked with the bird, she talked with the cow, and she went past the farm and talked with the animals in the woods beyond. When the little red hen saw the talking, she was very pleased, for she knew that she herself would surely win the contest through all her hard work. The little red hen was sure that all this talking was a pitiful waste of the little brown hen's time. The little red hen decided that she would not concern herself so much with the little brown hen, that if she stopped to look, she would become too distracted and amused. So the little red hen went about her work and completely ignored the little brown hen, so she could complete her very important task. As the little brown hen was speaking with the dog, she watched him dig. She said, my, what strong claws you have. You are an excellent digger. Best I've seen for miles around. Did you know that you have a gift? I couldn't dig like that if I tried. How would you like to have bread to eat all winter long so that you never let that talent go to waste?" The dog, who was normally quite lazy and selfish, perked up. Not only did it appeal to him to have his empty stomach filled, but he liked the idea of using his talent. So the little brown hen put him to work digging holes in the field. Then the little brown hen called out to the little bird, and she said, little bird, sit here with me for a minute, will you? I've been watching you, little bird, and I must say that I am quite impressed at how you're able to spy the smallest grain from miles away, swoop down and pick it up. See, I am also a bird, but I have to rely on others to bring me my food. You are able to gather things from near and far to have food for yourself and your little ones. I'm forced to a life on the ground. How would you like to have bread to eat all winter long for you and your little chicks so that you never have to let your talent go to waste?" And the little bird, who never usually gave anyone else the time of day, chirped with delight. She also liked using her talent for her own good and for the good of her chicks. So she set out on the instructions the little brown hen gave to fill each hole that the dog had dug with seeds of wheat that she had found. Then the little brown hen spoke with the beaver and the mole. She noticed the beaver's wide tail that he used for packing mud and the mole's uncanny ability to tunnel holes in the ground. So she encouraged the beaver as he went happily to work covering the holes with mud, and she cheered the mole on as he went to work tunneling trenches for irrigating the soil. And the little brown hen waited while the sun shone on her crops and the water irrigated them. She watched them sprout and grow. When the wheat was ripe, she turned to the goat. The goat used his powerful jaws to harvest that field, and though that goat would have eaten every last kernel, the little brown hen used her talent to convince him that it would be far better to have the wheat ground into flour to be used for making delicious bread. So he carefully cut each stalk without eating a single grain. After the little brown hen had gathered up all the stalks, she brought them to the mill, where the cow used her powerful muscles to push and push the large wheel to grind them into flour. Meanwhile, the little red hen was quite pleased with herself, for she had not stopped the entire season long tending to her crop. She watered it each day, diligently seeing it through thick and thin. When she was done, she had 5 whole pounds of flour, perfect to feed herself and her chicks for the long cold winter. After what little she had observed of the little brown hen, she was convinced that her 5 bags had won the contest. When she met the little brown hen and showed her the 5 pounds of flour, she saw that the little brown hen was empty-handed, and she rejoiced at the thought of forever putting that little brown hen in her place. She rejoiced at never having to listen to another suggestion from that know-it-all little brown hen. But when the little brown hen turned to open the door to the barn, the little red hen was amazed to find not 5, but 500 pounds of flour, all neatly packaged and ready to use for bread. Not only was there bread to feed the little brown hen, but bread to feed the entire group of animals. The dog who had used his talent for digging, the bird who had used her talent for planting, the beaver and mole who used their talents for packing and tunneling, the goat who used his talent for pulling, and the cow who had used her talent for pushing. There was enough food for everyone, and even some left over for still more animals from afar. The little red hen was amazed at the talent of the little brown hen, who had managed to instruct every animal and motivate each one to do what they did best. That day, she learned an important lesson. When you see and appreciate the talents of others and find a way to work together, there's nothing you can't do. Now, that's the end of that. I want to talk about the importance of stories in every culture since the dawn of mankind. Stories are so important because they carry values and they pass those values on to the next generation. One of the ideas I explored in my first book for adults that I call Pride and Privilege, Expand Your Influence in Cultural Chaos, is the fact that culture and even our language is always changing and always morphing. It is a living entity. And sometimes those who have a value for the past, you would call them a lot of times conservatives, would sit out changing cultural tides because they want things to stay the same. And in our information data age, culture is changing very rapidly today. And whether you like it or not, it's happening. Those who are not thinking of new ways to communicate are going to find themselves left behind. Now, it's possible to hold two values in tension and to be right about both. So, for example, in the Little Brown Hen, I contrast the value of hard work that we see in the Little Red Hen to the value of collaboration and communication that the Little Brown Hen brings to the table. Now, some could look at the story and assume that I'm minimizing the good old American values of hard work and independence and self-reliance. So, in the story, Red, she was closed off at first. She didn't want to learn new things, but in the end, she's open to learning a new lesson. Now, this teaches young and old alike that the way we communicate and call out value in others is a value in and of itself. The most wealthy CEOs focus most of their time invested into finding people's superpowers and collaborating with them around a larger goal. So when I first started sharing this story with others, I actually used it in church with adults to show that all of our gifts matter and that working together makes us a force to be reckoned with. So I love how God provided me this amazing illustrator, Maggie Joy. The cool part about this story is that Maggie was part of one of my first passion and purpose classes. And if you're interested in that class, you can find it on bravenation.online. But she's actually on the commercial there talking about how she was encouraged to really pursue the things that she never really thought about, the things that God might have put in her. And so through the process of this class, she came to realize that she actually had a talent for illustrating. And then by the time I asked her to illustrate my book, she had already illustrated 2 books and was loving it. So the message really comes full circle about activating the talents of others, just like the little brown hen had done. And she did an amazing job, and it was so fun to see this story come alive with her adorable illustrations. Now, I've always found the biblical story of the Tower of Babel really fascinating. They were all working together with a common language and a common purpose. Now, granted, that purpose wasn't God's purpose, which is why he ended up confusing their language. But God's comment about it is what really struck me. He said, if as one people speaking the same language have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And I thought this really highlights the power that God put in people through unity and through the ability to communicate. Now, granted, I don't want to work with people on projects that compete with God's priorities, but imagine what we're able to do when we rally around things that are good, beneficial, and redemptive. Like my story, when we do this, we experience an exponential increase in the things that we're doing. Unity is far more powerful than we realize. In a culture that elevates toxic tribalism, I want to carry redemption. It doesn't mean that I slink into the background, afraid to speak the truth where needed, because we can fall into that trap. But it does mean that I use my words carefully to build rather than to tear down. We've seen recently in our culture where insults have flown where there should have been kindness, where accusations have been made where there should have been conversations. Judgments have been leapt to when restraint and a temporary suspension of judgment would have been more productive. We're living in a day when even not saying something for a period of time is suspect. I think there's something a little bit sick about that. I want to leave you with a few challenges to think about for the coming year. Number one, take your ideas seriously. This story had been sitting on my shelf for over 15 years, and you might have something that is culture shifting, maybe that you've written or that you've spoken or a message that you have that you carry. Dust it off and get it out there if that's what the Lord's leading you to do. Now, I'm thankful that I had some really key confirming voices in my life saying, yes, now is the time to release this book. And I was able to do it. But it was work, and I had to work on getting it out there. It's now time to be part of the cultural conversation. And this story, I hope, will help shape a generation's thinking toward creative ways to work together. Number two, if you related to the red hen, I feel for you. If you're always relying on yourself, that's understandable. Maybe you've had to do that, but realize we were not made this way. We were made to have others in our lives. And sometimes that makes life messy. And asking for help just might make it a bit uncomfortable. Now, sometimes the trauma of someone who's let us down or the fear of being abandoned causes us to keep to ourselves and say, I'd rather just do it myself. But just like God provides our food and our shelter, He also provides people for us if we're open to them. These people carry keys for us, and we carry keys for them. You might be a great worker bee and you can produce a lot on your own, but it's nothing compared to what you can do with others. And I believe a key for 2026 is going to be about finding our people who can add value to our lives and where we can add value to theirs. It's about opening up and being willing to change our ways a little bit in order to work better with the right people. It's about generously adding value to others' lives and watching the seeds you sow start to prosper and to grow and produce prosperity for lots of other people. So, this is my third challenge for you. Be a person of reconciliation and redemption. Now, this is countercultural. Instead of you using your words to tear down, use them to build bridges. Now, it's not that we never have to fight real battles, but much of what we think is a battle can be unraveled through kindness and basic decency. As Proverbs 25:15 says, through patience, a ruler can be persuaded, and a gentle tongue breaks a bone. Meekness is not weakness. It's unflashy and underrated, but it carries very real power to make huge shifts in the course of history. Why do you think Jesus was born as a baby? It didn't really make a lot of sense politically, but it did to God. Now, when you have a conflict, do the hard work of having the hard conversation as far as you're able with that person. Part of the cost of doing life with others is that there will be conflicts. So don't be surprised when they happen, but lean in, learn more, be open. When you haven't heard all sides sufficiently, suspend your judgment just for a little while and wait for more information before you begin to pass judgments. Being a person of peace who carries a spirit of reconciliation requires a bit of wisdom. When you walk this road, you'll find that very few people, though, are as bad or as good as you assume that they are. Walking this road will cause you not to put people on unnecessary pedestals from which they're going to inevitably fall. It'll also cause you to resist the temptation to kick them to the curb the first time they do something wrong so that they can never recover. The lure of toxic tribalism causes us to jump to the defense or offense of one side or the other quickly. It's not that choosing a side is always bad. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's the eagerness with which we do it that shows whether we're mature or immature. Our hearts, instead of our hearts jumping to sides, our hearts should leap at reconciliation, not division. We should be eager for absolute truth to come to light, as well as for all parties to come to a realization of that truth and to be truly changed from within. After all, isn't that why Christ came? To reconcile the world to God? to call those from darkness into light and to set the captives free. You may think this world is hopeless, but the fact that you're alive means that you can bring it hope, and you actually have a duty to do that. Let's do our part in being part of a brave solution. Now, until next time, have a connected Christmas and a very redemptive New Year.